Shout out to our patron of the week, Marcus Ragonesi. It's Commander Time! Welcome to Commander Time! We are yet another podcast about the Magic the Gathering format known as Commander.
I'm Dean Goody.
I'm Nate Burgess.
And I'm Patrick Sapola.
Today we're talking about some more brews for the Commander 2017 Legendaries. Then we'll talk about games we played, pets we have, and maybe a goofy song. But first, there's a new segment. It's a short segment.
That's a segment song.
Cool. Instead of doing an entire episode each set for our top 5 or 10 favorite card picks, each episode we will pick an arbitrary category and pick our one favorite single card from the most recent set that fits the category. So this time, the top sorcery card of Commander 2017. Dean, what's your pick?
I'm going to pick Disrupt Decorum. It's a sorcery for 2 red, and it simply says, goad each creature you don't control.
Mass chaos, one-sided chaos. And that is also my top sorcery pick. Patrick?
I totally spaced on us doing that, so just a second while I look at the...
Okay.
Yep.
Probably going to be Disrupt Decorum because it's that good.
Yeah, it's... Oh, nope. I'm going to have to be different.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Are we allowing that?
Yeah.
All right, and my favorite is probably the combo-y card of Fractured Identity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's got applications.
That has many applications, like Leveler, or, hey, I want that thing, but I guess everybody else gets a copy too, you know?
But maybe they don't want a copy.
Yeah.
Oops, too bad for them.
Yep. You know, lots of good things that can come out of it, but Fractured Identity is my favorite, followed by Disrupt Decorum. That card's just good.
Yeah, Don Miner mentioned Fractured Identity in a Zedru build, because your Zedru deck is going to be full of bad cards that you're trying to give away, and that other players don't want to have. So now you give it to everybody.
Yeah. Steel golems for everybody.
Statecraft for everybody.
That was a thing that happened.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. So, our main topic, some brews. The main topic.
But not a bruise.
Some brews. Not some bruises. Some multiple brews.
Bruise day.
Patrick, how about you go first?
Okay. I wanted to do something that I don't typically like doing, and that was Selesnya Tribal. So that left me with cats for this. And if you're going to be tribal cats, you pretty much want to be Arahbo, Roar of the World. Yeah. I looked at doing the other cats, or like the new legendary cats, but they are not cat tribal. They are essentially equipment generals. So the build would be pretty different if you wanted to go with one of like Nazan or Miri instead. So I'm here to tell you about what I came up with.
Cool.
Yeah. First things first is that cats actually feel like a tribe now, which is, good. You don't feel like you're just putting a whole bunch of mismatched, same creature types together like you would with a... Ooh, what's a suboptimal tribe?
Advisors.
Yeah, like if you did advisors or something like that.
Oysters.
Although oysters might have, or, it's like saying like thalids don't really have... No, wait, not thalids. What are the...
Thalicos?
The blue...
No.
Metathrans?
Yeah. Noggles.
Oh.
Yeah, Noggles
the
don't have
saddest tribe.
Yeah, Noggles don't really have a driving force of a tribe. They kind of do a whole bunch of different things, and cats now actually kind of have a goal of turning sideways, often with equipment on them, sometimes going wide. Kind of feels like an elf deck with a different name to me, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's certainly a little bit, it definitely has some benefits over just being a straight elf deck, this cat deck. So let's go over that. First of all, there are now enough cats that you can actually cut out some of the bad cats from a tribal deck, which is usually a good sign for a tribe. If you can't cut, your armor thrall from a thrall deck, you're probably going to have a weak tribe trying to build. So now that we hit the kind of like threshold for the sheer number, we can actually make a decent deck out of all the creatures. We're not quite to the point where we're doing something like zombies, where you can do almost all lords, and but we're not doing the worst either. So that's a pretty neat place for cats to be at. And I did discover that there's only one planeswalker that actually cares about cats. Yeah, it's Ajani, Color of the Pride. Rest of the Ajanis just give +1/+1 counters willy-nilly. But Ajani, Color of the Pride, also gives away +1/+1 counters, but his ultimate of -8 is put X 2/2 white cat creature tokens onto the battlefield where X is your life total.
You might win the game if you get that off.
Yeah. And he only costs 3, so he's like, that's not the worst. And he has relevant abilities otherwise, so I just, let alone the fact that he's also a cat. So he's kind of the perfect planeswalker for this deck. If only there were more, we could be a little bit more spicy with our choices in the deck. But let's move on to actual cats.
So you approach this as to be a tribal deck then, right?
Yeah, 100% tribal. I wanted to see what the cat deck could do, and I have a niece she just turned 9. I have a niece who's 9, and she loves cats more than anything in the world, and she has been bothering me for close to 2 years for a cat deck, so that she can, look at all the cat faces and be happy that she has all these cats in her hand and on the battlefield.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this cat deck will maybe get my wife interested in learning how to play Commander as a gateway deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, she likes cats too, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I did this in part to maybe figure out what would be good to build for my niece, and for part just because it was something that hadn't been done with us. So let's talk about some notable cats. First and foremost, with Arahbo as your commander, the +3/+3 on target cat is amazing on double strikers.
It is pretty good.
Yeah, because you can turn some willy-nilly small cat into something that is going to hurt people real bad. And there might be more than just these 2 double striker cats. I don't actually know, but these 2 are probably the best naturally double striking cats. That's Sky Hunter Skirmisher for 1 and 2 white for a Cat Knight, flying, double strike 1/1.
Yeah, I have him in Adric Lunarch Marshal.
Yeah. He has 2 keywords, one with evasion and one that just double damage. That's just awesome. The second one is Adorned Pouncer from Amonkhet. 1 and a white for a 1/1 double strike with Eternalize for 3 white. So he'll come back as a 4/4 double striker. That's amazing. That's
pretty good.
That's very good in a deck that wants, 1, cats, and 2, cats that will turn sideways. So if you can, any way you can get rid of your Adorned Pouncer and then bring them back as a 4/4 giant cat, that's A+ territory.
There's also Balan Wandering Knight is one of the new cats in this set that can have double strike if he has 2 or more equipment attached.
Yeah, speaking of, he's in my next section of sweet legendaries. We'll start with Balan. He has first strike naturally, and he's a 3/3 for 2 white, and he has attach all equipment you control to Balan. which means you get to ignore all equip costs, which in equipment decks is like the biggest hurdle for them to be competitive. Because if you're spending all your mana to equip and re-equip and re-equip, you are not spending your mana doing spells. And that's a problem for EDH.
Let me ask if you have Raksha Golden Cub.
I did in my first build, actually.
That was just reprinted here. It's originally from Mirrodin, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I had her in hand in our second game, and I found that the deck itself did not really want too many cards over 6 mana.
Right.
And she's 7, I think it is.
Yep, 5 white.
Yeah, that's a lot. So it's 7, and then you have to attach an equipment to her. So short of a Lightning Greaves or something like that, you're looking for maybe 8 or 9 mana in order to pump your team. Which, I mean, hey, that's great, but that's a lot to ask for necessarily when most other decks are going to be playing 2 or 3 spells at, 8 or 9 mana. So she might be something that you put in replace for one of the other cards that I ended up switching out for. But, giving everything double strike and +2/+2 is also pretty sweet. Other sweet legendaries are Bramaz, King of Oreskos. He's a 3-mana 3/4. That's above board, and he has Vigilance. And whenever he attacks, you put some Cat Soldiers tokens onto the battlefield. And whenever he blocks, you also put 1/1 white Cat Soldier tokens onto the board. That's everything this deck wants. Everything, except for double strike.
But hey, Vigilance is nice.
Vigilance is great, because that means you get to attack and block. And so you do the thing that people love to do, which is hit people and not get hit back. The other 2 sweet legendaries that I wanted to bring forward are Nazan, Revered Bladesmith, also from the new C17, and Miri, Weatherlight Duelist. They are both great utility creatures that Miri just helps you control the board from, turning against you. Not so much, like actually get rid of things, but she has first strike, so that makes it really nice to attack with. And once she stays tapped, only one creature can attack you at a time.
I like the play on Miri with Dueling Grounds, which I think is what she's based on.
Mm-hmm. And Nazan, Revered Bladesmith, is great because he either lets you search for an equipment, which is something that, any of these cats would love to have, or he searches for Hammer of Nazan and puts it on the battlefield. He also taps creatures whenever your cats attack and are equipped. But that's really here and there. I spend 6 mana to search up Hammer of Nazan.
Because it's great.
And play it for free.
And play it for free. And then equip it for free. That is bonkers.
It gives indestructible, right?
Yeah. +2/+0, indestructible, equip for free. Well, just when it enters the battlefield. But the rest of the card is all gravy. You just want to play this 6 mana tutor spell, essentially, and a 5/4 body. It is beyond great. Up next, the next category, which is utility cats. I was actually surprised to find out that utility-cats are a thing. Did you know that there are a number of utility cat creatures? I didn't. It turns out there's a number of them. And only one of them were printed for C17.
Yeah, I used one of these in one of my decks.
Oh wait, no, I take that back. There is a second one that they printed I didn't include here, which is the Kalsai Slingers, not Swingers.
Oh, that thing.
Yeah, which is just an Aura Shards in mono green. So that's a great creature. But the 5 I have listed here do 5 very different things. We have Leonin Shikari, 1 and a white for a 2/2. You may activate equip abilities anytime you can cast an instant. That's just running equipment decks everywhere, and she happens to be a cat. So, A+.
This one was actually going up in price until they reprinted it here.
Mm-hmm. Then we have Watchers of the Dead, a 2-mana artifact cat. It's graveyard hate on a cat. Exile Watchers of the Dead. Each opponent chooses 2 cards in his or her graveyard and exiles the rest.
Yeah, I use this one.
Yeah. Up next is Kasali Pride Mage. This was an all-star, green-white for Exalted 2/2. You can pay 1, sacrifice Kasali Pride Mage, destroy target artifact or enchantment.
Hey, Patrick.
Yeah.
Is Exalted good in this deck?
Yes. If you're going to put all of your equipment on one card, and then you're not going to be attacking with all your other creatures, most likely. And if you're only attacking with one, may as well give it a +1/+1. Also, once the board goes to a point where Kasali Pride Mage is not great, it becomes a 3-mana destroy target artifact or enchantment spell. So, I've seen people run worse enchantment and artifact destruction. And this guy is just, he's a cat, so A+. Then we have Alms Collector, 3 and a white, 3/4, flash, and if an opponent would draw 2 or more cards, instead you and that player each draw a card. That's just, it's mono white card draw.
Meow.
Meow. I mean, I
like this one.
Yeah, he's good. I put him under utility because he kind of hates on blue and all of the card drawing that they do.
What if somebody wheels?
Well, then you get to draw 1, and then.
Yeah, you get the full wheel.
You get the full wheel, and then
draws just 1, and then you draw one for each opponent.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get better.
And he's got flash, so
yeah,
you do it in response to a wheel. Nice.
Yeah, he's good. And then finally, we got Pride of Lions. He's 5 mana for 4/4, 3 green. You may have Pride of Lions assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. If you ever need to push the last bit of damage in, Pride of Lions is the one you're going to look for. Because you don't need to give him unblockable. You just need to send him in all equipped up, and he's just going to do a ton of damage, whether or not he was blocked.
And it can be a 7/7 for free off your commander.
Exactly. So now I have one cat that I'm on the fence about, and that's Hungry Lynx.
Oh.
Yeah.
Seems so good.
He seems okay. Like, when I originally read him, I read him as okay, and I think he would have been better if he just did your normal Lord thing and just gave your cats +1/+1 across the board.
But Patrick, the flavor.
Yeah, the flavor, whatever. I don't care. I mean, listen, if you build a cat deck for the flavor, absolutely put Hungry Lynx in. I'm not convinced at how good it is unless you can start turning a lot of your opponent's creatures into rats.
Well, you can gain political favor by giving away the rats.
Right. When I was playing the games with you, I was trying to play politics by dealing 10 damage and then giving you a rat.
Here you go.
I mean, it does have
rat,
death
buddy.
touch, so that's a thing.
Yeah, it is something, but at the end of the day, I'm not convinced that it's great.
Yeah, no, it's cute. It's really cute.
It's very cute, but man, I wish it was better than it is, but
it's like a mafia message in reverse. You whack them first, and then you send them the rat.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, flavor win, gameplay, that's kind of how I came down on it. Otherwise, here are some like A++ cards would run again for cat deck. We got Dusk to Dawn, the Aftermath split card. So 2 white, destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. You know what size most cats are?
2/2.
Yep. Hey, even then, it doesn't matter. You're going to have most of your 2/2s, and you destroy all the big things. And even if you end up killing your one equipmented up dude, whatever, it doesn't matter. You know,
your Voltron du jour.
Yeah, you can just Voltron up again. It's not the end of the world. And
maybe you guys are indestructible anyway, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, there's always that chance, too. And even better, we have Dawn on the other side, and that is return all creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. 2? That's amazing. That's a lot of cards that we have that just want to come back over and over again.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. So even if you do hit your 2/2 with all the equipment and it dies, you can just bring it back the next turn. So I'm all in on that. It was good the one time we played it, and I would run it again in this deck. Up next we have Hammer of Nizan. Man, whenever an equipment comes into play, you just get to attach it to something.
Yeah, that is really, really strong.
That's a game changer. It's another copy of Sigarda's Aid, essentially.
I mean, this just goes in every equipment-based Voltron deck, right? Just right in.
Right in. There's no way you don't run it. Because it even counts for itself. It gives your Voltron indestructible, so you don't have to run Darksteel Plate as your one of indestructibility. Oh my god, it is beautiful.
So, what would be your estimate? How many equipment does your deck need to run before you want Hammer of Nizan?
I think as soon as you have decided that you are an equipment-based deck, that's when you run Hammer of Nizan. I don't think you just run it just because.
What was your equipment density?
I ended up at 19, it looks like.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah, that's decent. My updated list went down to 18, I think it was. And I feel like that was a pretty decent number of equipment. You definitely run into some pitfalls when it comes to that, to building equipment decks, or like Voltron decks in general, is where you have to have creatures and your equipment and things like that. It's a balance that every deck needs to make in these situations. Other pitfalls for this deck include if you give your one big cat protection from green or protection from white, Arahbo can't target him or her. So
how might your creatures get protection, Patrick?
Well, maybe with like Swords of Feast and Famine or Sword of War and Peace. Yeah, my games were going a lot better when I just didn't cast those swords. Or just use them in general. Like the secondary abilities were appealing, but in general they didn't actually do much for me. The creatures that I were attacking with are in general kind of disposable. I mean, I don't want to see them go, but on the other hand, it's not the end of the world if they do die in combat. Because I can just line up another 2/2 cat, equip them up, and send them away.
Yeah, you weren't really going wide. You were going...
Yeah, there's a handful of cats that will go wide. Brahmaz is one, and Kemba is another. You can also do it with White Sun Zenith and create a whole bunch of 2/2 cats. But for the most part, it's about 3 mana cost creatures, and then stacking them up with a whole bunch of equipment, which what it ended up doing was not feeling like a contradiction, like how I feel when you were running just Kemba or something like that, because you always want to just stack all your equipment on Kemba and go as wide as you can, but then why are you making Kemba so big, you know?
Yeah, Kemba actually seems like she makes a lot of sense in this deck.
She does, but she's not a great commander because she kind of goes against herself. She's a really weird card, and so like I really like her in the 99 here, but not so great when she's the commander, in my opinion. So that being said, the last pitfall for this deck is going to be getting board wiped is probably the worst thing in the world. It feels exactly like getting board wiped in playing tribal elves. You just kind of watch and have to slowly build up again, and since all your like card draw and things are based on creatures, you have to get your creatures out again and then bring them back. So maybe running some recursion somehow, or more protection would be ideal in these kinds of decks.
Okay.
What about, what's the card from Ether Revolt for 1 and a green where your stuff gains hexproof and indestructible?
Heroic Intervention.
Yeah.
That made my second, my retake of it. Heroic Intervention is a great card. I run it in my Rats deck because it has saved my board many, many times. Because it gives it hexproof, so you can't get targeted, and even if it's like a mass board wipe like Damnation, they don't get destroyed, so you don't have to worry about it.
It's sort of like a counterspell in green.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of the cat token doublers, are there enough cat token makers to make the green-white token doublers worth those card slots?
Let's see. I'm going to go through my list real quick and count that. So, do we want to count Adorned Pouncer as a token maker?
Sure.
Yes.
If it makes a token,
it would
right.
make a token.
Yep,
yeah.
it makes a 4/4 double striking token once. So that's 1, 2, 8 with a Johnny. 4 that make cats specifically, which is a fair number. I just never drew most of them for the most part. There's also one really weird one that I counted, which is the Nactal War Pride from Future Sight, I think it is. 3 green, green, green. So 6 mana for a 3/3. And Nactal War Pride must be blocked by exactly 1 creature if able. And whenever Nactal War Pride attacks, put X tokens into play tapped and attacking that are copies of Nactal War Pride, where X is the number of creatures defending player controls.
I hear that's really good with Miri.
Yeah. It's also really good if you have token doublers, because then, you get twice as many.
Who knew?
But there's another reason to run token doublers in equipment decks now, and that's Bloodforged Battle Axe, which makes token artifact equipment that you can just start passing around. So that sounds awesome. That's really what I was hoping for if I ever managed to play a Parallel Lives or Anointed Procession. I was really hoping to draw into Bloodforged Battle Axe and get that going. And maybe hand out axes to an entire army of cats.
Yeah, well, that would be great with the Hammer of Nizan, right? Because you make the copies and attach them for free.
Mm-hmm.
So with cats, you kind of have to decide whether you're going equipment or you're going tokens.
Yeah, I think there's much more support in equipment, but no matter what you're doing, it's going to be a combat-based deck.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you have equipment, you need to turn sideways, and if you're going tokens, you're going to have to turn sideways to make most of these tokens for the most part. I mean, that's just the way it goes. As is, I don't feel like I feel like striking a middle ground in this particular deck is not the worst.
All right.
Removing the token support might be a better idea, but then you'd end up, that might mean taking out Bramaz, and I do not suggest that. He's just a great card. So I leave that up to the listeners to really kind of figure out how you would build the cat. I also just did not add any standard equipment creatures that you would normally see because they weren't cats.
Like the living weapons?
I have 1 living weapon in Batterskull because he gives vigilance, which is great. There it is. I don't have Pure Steel Paladin in the deck, which is white for a 2/2. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. And he has Metalcraft. Equipment you control have equip 0. And I'm not running SRAM either.
Oh, they're not cats.
Exactly. If I were to go hardcore equipment instead, then I would probably include them. But this is a cat deck, and I'm here to make cats and slash at people with my claws.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's pretty good for Arahbo. I think we're running long, so how about we just do Dean's next, and we'll save mine for the next time.
Sure. I brewed Kess, Dissident Mage. She is a legendary human wizard for 1 blue-black red. She's a 3/4 with flying, which is... It didn't come up in the games, but that flying is nice.
What, she has flying?
Yeah.
I completely missed that.
Who knew?
I don't think it really came up.
No, but it is nice for smacking planeswalkers if you ever need to do that.
Right.
The really important part of her decks, though, is during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. If a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So for Kess, you're looking at your graveyard as an extension of your hand, but only on your turn and only once on each of your turns. The thing that's nice about Kess is she doesn't mind playing a long game, so symmetrical discard effects are really excellent. Notably, Delirium Skeins. I'm not sure if I used this one in particular or a different discard effect at one point on Unate. But Delirium Skeins is 2 and a black for a sorcery that says each player discards 3 cards. You're going to discard your instants and sorceries, and your opponents are going to discard whatever, but they're not going to get those back, and you are. If you have 6 mana, you can actually cast Delirium Skeins twice in the same turn and probably wipe out your opponent's entire hands. Noxious Vapors is pretty similar in that it makes people discard quite a few cards at the same time. Wheel effects are really great for a similar reason, because anything that you discard, again, you're just going to cast it again later, and it extends your hand out. So Windfall, Dark Deal, Whispering Madness. Something kind of unusual called Urza's Guilt does something similar to a wheel. Those cards are all fantastic in Kess. Your opponents are probably not going to be able to recur those cards unless you're playing against Marion or some other kind of Reanimator build. Notably, though, Wheel of Fate has been reprinted a bunch in Commander, and that cannot be cast from the graveyard with Kess because it doesn't actually have a mana cost. It has a converted mana cost of 0, but it doesn't have a mana cost, and it specifies that it must be instead of casting it from your hand, you can suspend it. So that's a little bit of a non-bow with Kess. And then stuff that shuffles your hand or shuffles everyone's hand into the library and then draws back up, like Winds of Change, is not so great. You really want to put those things in your graveyard for later use.
You want to expand your spell book.
Exactly, yeah. Some cards want to be cast from the graveyard specifically. So original Innistrad had a cycle of sorceries increasing whatever. There was increasing ambition, increasing devotion, increasing... I forget what the blue one was. Increasing Vengeance was the red one. They do a thing, and then they have Flashback, which lets you cast it from your graveyard. And then when you cast them from the graveyard, they do the thing, but they do it even better. So Kess lets you cast the cards from your graveyard for the original cheaper casting costs, giving you the better effect at the original cost. The 2 that I ran in this deck are Increasing Ambition, which is a tutor, and Increasing Vengeance, which is a fork effect. So Increasing Ambition is for 5 and a black. It'll find you a card, and then you can cast it for... you can flash it back, rather, for 7 and a black to find 2 cards. But if you use Kess to cast it for 4 and a black from your graveyard, you can find 2 cards for 4 and a black. And Increasing Vengeance, for red, it'll fork an instant or a sorcery, and then you can flash it back for 3 red, but with Kess, you can just pay red, and it'll copy a spell twice instead of just once. That card, I think, is what closed out our second game. I cast Torment of Hailfire, and then used Increasing Vengeance to copy it twice for red. It was pretty good.
Yep.
So it's specifically the increasing cycle that checks for whether it's cast from a graveyard.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Increasing Confusion is the blue one. I didn't run this. I guess you could if you were going to do a mill strategy, and you could always hit yourself. It's X in a blue, target player, mills X cards. If you cast it from your graveyard, they do double X. Seems kind of just okay.
Yeah. It's a mana dump, so it's something. Sure.
And I mean, it's not bad to fill your own graveyard with stuff either. Let's see. Spells with buyback. These cards are great because if you hit them when you're wheeling, or if you just don't have the mana to buy them back when you're using them, you can let them go to the graveyard, and then later on during your own turn, you can cast it from your graveyard and buy it back, and it'll, instead of resolving and going to exile, it'll resolve and go to your hand. So you get to keep on using it again. They become really flexible. I didn't actually have spells with buyback really feature prominently in any of our games, but it's a really nice interaction with Kess. She only exiles cards if they would be put into your graveyard this turn.
So you only have to pay the buyback cost every other time you cast it.
Yes, that's right. So long as you're able to cast it. Something like Forbid, the counterspell, it might be difficult to cast on your turn unless you are pretty sure that an opponent is going to try to cast something on your turn that you can counter.
Okay.
So that might be something to hold on to. Spells with Overload and other alternate casting costs can be cast for their alternate casting costs from your graveyard. So Cyclonic Rift, you can overload Cyclonic Rift from your graveyard.
Oh, yeah.
How about Kickers?
Kickers, yeah. Kickers you can do as well.
Yep. Kickers are not alternative casting costs, but additional costs, and you can definitely pay those.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all the problems that people had with As Foretold don't actually exist with this card.
What? They do... What are you talking about?
The problem that people had with As Foretold is because you cast the spell for 0 instead of its mana cost. So that's an alternate cost. So you can't overload Cyclonic Rift with As Foretold.
Ah.
So
yes.
it takes care of that particular problem.
Speaking of As Foretold, that card actually works with Kess. As Foretold does not specify that you can only cast the card from your hand. It just says, once each turn you may pay 0, rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast, with converted mana cost to X or less.
So you can do that from the graveyard?
Yep, you can do that from the graveyard.
Okie doke.
Okay, so like Taigam, modal spells are really, really good in Kess, especially modal counterspells. Regular counterspells are not always great because usually you want to counterspell something on your opponent's turn, but if it's in your graveyard, you can only cast it during your turn with Kess. So getting something different off of the second cast is really, really good. Stuff like Cryptic Command, Silumgar's Command, Is It Charm, Dimir Charm. Each of these spells has a counterspell mode and a separate mode that does something else. So they're definitely worth considering for a Kess build. So then how do we finish the game up? Gutter Snipe and Burning Vengeance are 2 cards that can whittle your opponent's life totals down. Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent whenever you cast an instant or sorcery. Burning Vengeance deals 2 damage whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard. So Burning Vengeance is a little bit slower because it's probably just going to go off once per turn on your turn. But Gutter Snipe is excellent. Secrets of the Dead is a similar card to Burning Vengeance. Whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, you draw a card. So that's a nice little synergy.
If you run Gutter Snipe, do you run Vile Smasher the Fierce?
Yeah, Vile Smasher the Fierce would also be good if you're going that route.
Cool.
I just realized that cycling cards work pretty okay with her as well.
Yes, you can cycle the cards and then cast them from your graveyard.
Yep.
The way that I built Kess, it was not Storm, but I think that a Storm build is really viable for Kess. Kess's colors are in some of the best Storm finishers, so like Tendrils of Agony, Grape Shot, and Brain Freeze. And then you get to play a lot of rituals like Dark Ritual, Desperate Ritual, Inner Fire, Mana Geyser. These cards just make lots and lots and lots of mana for you. And if you are running a bunch of rituals to fuel your storm count and make you mana, you could also sink all that mana into something like Exsanguinate or Torment of Hailfire or Comet Storm. Those are the cards that I built into my deck to close the game out, and I was planning on copying them, but unfortunately my Swarm Intelligence was countered, and Mirari is a little bit clunky, I think.
Yeah. I've never found it to be great.
Yeah, it was not really helpful. Kess also gives the High Tide combo some extra resiliency and flexibility when it's going off, since you can tutor for the pieces, and and some of the tutors will put stuff into your graveyard, and you don't really care if it goes to the graveyard or not with Kess, because you can get it back anyway. Patrick, are you familiar with the High Tide combo? Are you?
I mean, a little bit. I was just thinking about it, and another thing that's really nice about Kess is that you can cast High Tide or Bubbling Muck, the black version.
Oh, yeah.
And then immediately recast it. But in general, the goal is to storm out. You just make as much mana as possible. You untap your lands as much as possible with things like Palinchron or
Turnabout,
any of the spells that are mana neutral. That should have never been printed, like Rewind and that
Frantic
Search.
What's wrong with? They should never have been printed?
Yeah, that is the general consensus.
They're sort of mistakes.
They were pretty big mistakes.
Oh.
They are fun cards, don't get me wrong, but they were probably mistakes. But then
they're fine for EDH.
Yeah, they're fine for EDH. They are huge.
Not fine for Standard.
Not great for Standard, not great for Vintage, not great for, any of those, because it just enables Storm so much.
Well, I mean, they're great for those formats. They're just not.
Other finishers include things like Aetherflux Reservoir.
Right. Yeah. Oh, as a Storm win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I rebuilt this deck, I actually did have High Tide and Turnabout in this deck. I think if I rebuilt it, I would probably run Paradox Engine with Mana Rocks. I think that's probably a little bit easier and more efficient, except that you are relying on permanence, and the deck is a lot stronger in instants and sorceries. So
yeah.
Another way that another game closer was It didn't actually end the game for me, but it did bring us a lot closer. Disrupt Decorum. I got to cast that twice in a row, and it was great not having to worry about anyone attack me 2 turns in a row and watch everybody else have to attack everyone else and bring their life totals down. I think that Disrupt Decorum actually did kill one of you guys. Was it you, Patrick?
Yeah, it was probably me. I mean, I had to make some really bad attacks.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, left me way too open.
Yeah, well, that's the other nice thing about Disrupt Decorum is it leaves your opponents open to attacks. With all the wheels that this deck runs, I think a Nekasar strategy or build is really viable also, because the wheels help Kess, and then she can cast those wheels again from the graveyard. So running stuff like Megrim or Liliana's Caress, or even Nekasar himself would be really good in this. And Kess, of course, would be fantastic in a Nekasar deck for the same reason. She can recast your wheels. Some of the cards that were really good in this deck, Swarm Intelligence, Mirari. Mirari is a little bit too slow, like I said, but Swarm Intelligence will just copy all of your instants and sorceries each turn. That's great. Ill-Gotten Gains is a really interesting card to disrupt your opponents in some ways, and it'll also recur your instants and sorceries for extra casting. Burning Inquiry is another random draw discard that can screw with your opponent's hands, and it's only slightly worse than Delirium Skeins. Delirium Skeins makes those cards go away, whereas this kind of just randomizes your opponent's hands, and your own hand as well. Gamble and Intuition are both super good in this deck. You can go and find an instant or sorcery. They're both tutors. You go and find some cards. With Gamble, you discard a card at random. Great, you discard an instant. Whatever, you'll just cast again later. Intuition, you find 3 cards, and an opponent chooses one to go to your hand, and the other 2 go to your graveyard. That's basically Gifts Ungiven for this deck. It's really good. You just can find your combo and play it out. Epiphany at the Drownyard, Fact or Fiction, Frantic Search, Ancient Excavation. These are all cards that will dump a bunch of cards into your graveyard and also either put a bunch of cards in your hand or filter the cards in your hand. Just all stars. All the cards that go to your graveyard just really add to your hand. It's awesome. Ghostly Flicker is an instant for 2 and a blue. It says, exile 2 target artifacts, creatures, and or lands you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under your control. So when you flicker Kess with Ghostly Flicker, she is a new object and will let you cast an additional spell from your graveyard this turn, assuming you've already cast one with her. So you have Kess out, you cast your thing from the graveyard, then you cast Ghostly Flicker, you flicker her and a land for an extra mana, or maybe Soul Ring, and it kind of almost pays for Ghostly Flicker. And then Kess as a new object, and you can now cast another thing from your graveyard. There's also a couple of other things that are like this. Displace, which is from Eldritch Moon, and Illusionist's Stratagem, which is from Khan's block. They're okay, but they only do this for creatures, so they don't hit your lands or your artifacts. Maybe not quite as good if you're not running a lot of creatures. If you're going for some weird janky stuff, I did put Ignorant Bliss into this deck, and One with Nothing could also possibly have a place in this deck. Ignorant Bliss will protect your hand from being wheeled or discarded away, and I actually got to use that on Nate once. I Ignorant Blissed and then Windfalled, and then got to keep...
It was one of the wheels.
Yeah. And then One with Nothing would discard your hand for you, which could possibly be relevant. If any deck was going to run One with Nothing, it would probably be Kess. And then Dream Salvage and Geth's Grimoire would both be pretty good in Kess. Dream Salvage lets you draw cards equal to the number of cards target opponent discarded this turn. And Geth's Grimoire will let you draw a card whenever an opponent discards a card. So, both would be great with all those wheels.
I was jealous of your deck.
It was pretty slow, actually.
Well, it was slow, but I was still jealous of it. I wanted to do all those things.
Fair enough. Yeah, the symmetrical discard effects with Kess are just, they're just delicious. I like discard. I'm one of those players. So when I can make everyone discard and have it really not affect me at all, sign me up. I'm all in.
Okay, looking at your deck page, I'm looking at the mana curve. So yours has the most at the 2-drop slot with, looks like 22 spells that are mana cost 2, 15 or 16 at mana cost 3, and about 13 at mana cost 4, and the rest are statistically dust. You have a total of 52 instants and sorceries. And I'm asking myself the question, would I include Kess in a Yeleva deck or Yeleva in a Kess deck? And I think it comes down to that mana curve. If you like playing a lot of small mana cost Grixis spells, use Kess. And if you want to play the big mana cost Grixis spells, you use Yeleva.
Yeah, well, Yeleva cheats that mana cost for you, right? Kess doesn't do that for you so much.
Right. I don't think one should run Yeleva in Kess, but maybe Kess in Yeleva.
I could see it that way.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, it'll recycle those cards once you do get up to the mana. I mean, if you're casting a giant spell for free off of Yeleva, and then you just have mana sitting around, why not cast another giant spell from your graveyard with Kess?
Yeah. I mean, it might replace Charmbreaker Devils in that sense, in a Yeleva deck.
I think that would actually probably be a pretty good trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Kess is 2 cheaper than the Charmbreaker Devils, and she gives you access to every instant and sorcery in your graveyard, whereas Charmbreaker Devils is random, and they cost 6.
Yeah. And your Kess deck is more suited to Gutter Snipe than Vile Smasher, and Yeleva is vice versa.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. I run lots of small stuff, so casting a lot of stuff to chain it together with the Gutter Snipe is good.
So you heard it here first, folks. if you want to make 2 Grixis decks that are similar but different, go with Yaleva and Kess.
Well, Yaleva and Kess, and then Kess and Nekasar could also be built pretty similar.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, my Nekuzar is getting dethroned, and Kess is taking over the command seat as soon as I get her.
Yeah, you were talking about building Kess with
Hive Mind.
Yeah, with Hive Mind. What would you do with Hive Mind,
What
Patrick?
sort of janky chaos would happen in this situation?
Lots of things.
Oh, lots and lots of things.
He would Hive Mind a wheel.
Many wheels. I mean, Dean, you already loved Burning Inquiry. Well, why don't you want to do Burning Inquiry 4 or 5 times?
I don't mind doing Burning Inquiry 4 or 5 times, but can I also do Delirium Skeins 4 or 5 times?
Dean, I think you're missing the point.
Yeah.
I guess so. I don't know. I just want to make everybody discard all their stuff, so...
Well, I mean, when you're running Hive Mind, you live by the hive, and you die by the mind.
You die by the hive. Oh, you die by the mind.
Okay. Could you elaborate on that?
Okay, so whenever I play Hive Mind, my goal for the game tends to shift from, I'm going to try to win this game, to, I wonder what's going to happen. Okay, well, I know at least one of my friends is in my camp of, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen. And so he intentionally casts spells into it as much as I do. The rest of the table are usually more on the, I don't want to have to deal with how to resolve all of this. How do I kill this without casting any spells? So 2 of us get to have a lot of fun.
Which is at least half of you.
And usually when somebody finally figures I'm just going to cast, Return to Dust on your Hive Mind, and I don't care what happens, that usually means I end up losing my board of enchantments.
Chaos ensues.
But when I resolve Hive Mind, I know I'm probably not going to win, but I'm going to have a lot of fun.
That's fair.
And you could always go with the fun Pact of Negation win.
Yeah. Or Slaughter Pact. I mean, you're in.
You're in Pact country.
Yep.
Dope.
Yeah.
All right. Since we've been recording over an hour, let's talk about my deck next time, and we'll move on to our last game. Our last game.
We had 2 last games.
Yeah. You'll hear about it next time. I was playing Leisha Sanguine Tribune, the vampire with lifelink who gets pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She was pretty good.
When you can pay 5 life once your turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing Kess, of course.
And I was being a kitty. Meow.
So Patrick ended up coming out of the gates on that one.
Yeah, that was definitely my better game out of the 2. It turns out when you have flying double strikers, it's really good. I had a Kelsey Pride Mage that became an 8/8 flying double strike. I also had Sky Hunter Skirmisher as a 8/8 flying double strike.
Yeah, that was after the board wipe.
Yeah, that was after the board wipe, proving that double strike is great, and so is flying in equipment decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the early game there, during the board wipe, I think in response to it, Nate tried to Rakdos Charm Kess's graveyard, which was very mean of you, Nate. I don't know why.
Because it had 20-some cards in it.
Yeah, but it's just
that's why.
It's just a couple of things in my graveyard. It's fine. So I had to cast Delay.
Couple dozen things.
We had wheeled once or twice. It was fine. So I cast Delay to make his Rakdos Charm go off in 3 or 4 turns.
Mm-hmm.
Which it did. It did go off in 3 or 4 turns,
Yep.
and then it exiled my graveyard.
It delayed it.
Yep.
Does what it says on the tin.
Yeah, Dean, you went through nearly twice as many cards as Nate or I did, and you wheeled us a couple times.
Yeah, I think I saw half of my deck that game, at least half of my deck.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, you got a few early draw then discard spells.
Yeah, usually in a deck that has blue, I'll build stuff like Ponder, Preordain, and Brainstorm into it. But I didn't care about that with Kess. I'll draw them and dump them into the graveyard. So draw discard is great.
Okay, I'll say that as a preview for next time, Wall of Reverence is pretty good in Alicia deck.
Oof. Yeah, that was pretty nasty. You can recoup all of the life that you spend into Alicia after, like 1 or 2 turns?
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
This was also the game where I tapped out to try to end the game with Torment of Hellfire, and Patrick...
I mana-tithed you.
...had a surprise mana-tithe.
I did it, everybody. I'm the best.
Woo!
And I believe Patrick did... this all happened the turn before Nate's delayed Rakdos Charm went off.
Yeah. So what happened was Dean played Torment of Hellfire for some arbitrary number, and then he said, and I hold priority, essentially. He said, in response, I play Increasing Vengeance on it.
From my graveyard.
From his graveyard. So, because he held priority, I can't get a mana tithe in between those spells.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
I have to get it in after the Increasing Vengeance had hit the table. So when Mana Tithe resolves and he's tapped out, he doesn't get either copy.
Mm-mm.
And Dean becomes the saddest Dissident Mage ever.
Mm.
I lost soon after that, though.
Yeah. Alicia hit these guys, and I had about 70 life.
Yeah, Alicia had to hit Patrick because I used Memory Plunder to cast Disrupt Decorum twice. Because it was Nate's Disrupt Decorum. I didn't have mine because Nate had exiled my graveyard.
Aha.
So sad.
I won game 1.
Yes, you did.
So the next game we were joined by our friend Josh, and he was playing a Zedru build, which did some neat things. There was some crazy mana ramp in the first couple of turns. Everybody had their rocks and signets.
Their soul rings. Yep.
And then Dean overloaded a Vandal Blast on turn 3.
Oh, such a shame. All that mana just went away.
I was also a little annoyed with Josh for intellectually offering the blue deck that wanted to draw 1,000,000 cards.
Yeah, it was cool. I let him, target me with the intellectual offering. I didn't mind.
Yeah, I don't... That's not the way I would have played it out, but, I guess he wanted Dean to be his friend.
And we were friends. After
the second one targeting you, I decided that he was my arch nemesis, and I just decided to attack him, and I was already kind of sick. So I was going with very simple plans.
I like that you decided that he was your arch nemesis. And
he's
not
the
me.
one who targeted you.
Yeah.
You could only counterspell, and you know what? You're not going to counterspell card draw or untapping your permanents. I understand that.
Ha ha ha. Where is your mana tithe now, Patrick?
Didn't see it.
But I was then everybody's friend because I drew us 3 cards with Burning Inquiry. And then you guys had to randomly discard 3 cards. But
I think I like that card.
I love
it's a cool card, right? For a single red, it's not bad. And it's great in Kess.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to gamble twice, which was also great.
Yep, and then instant speed statecraft happened to me.
Yeah.
So, Patrick, why don't you tell us about statecraft?
Statecraft prevents all damage your creatures do and are done to you.
Yeah. So if Zedru has a statecraft on the field, he can, at instant speed, give it to someone who's attacking him. Like this giant cat. Incoming.
Yeah. Luckily, it turns out Dromoka's command allows target player to sacrifice an enchantment that they control. So, hey, I got out of that.
You almost couldn't cast that Dramoka's command because you almost couldn't choose a second mode because all of your creatures had protection from green, which was pretty hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, I could have always chosen somebody else's creature to get a +1/+1 counter, but
like mine.
Hand them out.
I could have, but I decided that, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm going to take back my I'm going to take back my play, and I'm going to play out this random 2-mana cat first, and then cast Dramoka's command.
You needed to do that. That was a better play.
Yeah. I was on the verge of like passing out at this point, so I was kind of glad that I died soon after.
After that, we had some Ignorant Bliss Windfall shenanigans, and then Disrupt Decorum twice again. And then at that point, Patrick was dead. Was Josh dead at that point?
No, wait. I think...
No, Josh died first.
Yeah, Josh,
that's right.
Yeah.
It was Josh.
I was alive
died
until the end. I just wasn't paying attention.
Right. So, and then I killed you and Nate with a Torment of Hellfire, just like I intended to, targeting it with Increasing Vengeance. So I got 3 Torments of Hellfire. Each one, X was 10. So basically X equals 30.
And I even had a 1 white open.
And I had 66 life.
And that didn't matter.
Yeah. Well, still fun.
Yeah, I had a blast.
So how about some pets? The pets update.
Oh, okay. I think I've cracked the code on why Talon likes to sleep on the wrong part of the bed, of his like sleeping bed, where, you know, he's like laying, you know, not in the like the center part, but like just off to the side. The secret is he doesn't view his bed as a bed, but as a pillow.
Okay.
He views the blanket that's next to his bed as the bed.
Okay.
So if you move the blanket to the side, he lays on the blanket and uses the bed as a pillow. But if you move the blanket back onto the bed, he uses the blanket as a bed still, and uses the side of the pillow, or the side of the bed, as the pillow.
You cracked the doggy code.
Yep.
Congratulations.
I did it.
Your dog is a genius.
Yeah.
I think you win a medal or something, Patrick.
You can just, you know, send me my $1 million to me, and and not Nate or Dean, because I'm the one who did it.
Hey,
I'll take some of it. You know,
yeah.
I'll give you both $10.
Oh, okay. So for our pet update over here, Miri is recovering from her flea infestation, and she is scratching herself a little bit too much from her skin is irritated from it, so she's gonna have to wear a cone of shame. Shame.
Does your daughter know what's up?
No, we haven't actually gotten the cone of shame yet, but it'll be interesting to see what happens when Paisley sees her in cone of shame.
She's gonna ask a lot of questions.
Yes, yeah, she is. I'll have to catch one of those. I'll have to catch that on a video and put it on YouTube or Twitter or something.
Yes.
Will it amplify the sound of her meowing?
Yes, absolutely.
And then.
In my update, my cat sounds like Marge Simpson when she wants to get my attention. It's like a whining trill, like. So yeah, Marge Simpson.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, those are our pet updates. You can tweet your pet updates to @commandtime, and if you don't have a pet, maybe consider adopting one. Today's adoptable pet of the week is, drumroll please, Charlie Goomba at Sail Rescue in Phoenix, Arizona. Charlie is a really, 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 really cute boxer mix. You can extol his virtues.
Her, according to...
Yeah, she.
Yeah. She is mostly white with a black nose, and she looks like she apparently likes to play and cuddle, which is like everything you want from a dog.
Yeah, she looks really cute.
Mm-mm. She even smiles.
And the adoption fee is a mere $100.
That's not bad.
That's really not bad.
All right.
Nate, look at that. Would you consider getting a dog for a dog this cute?
Nope.
Oh.
You're missing out.
Oh well. Somebody else adopt this dog for Nate.
And then send us a letter and $1 million.
Sounds good.
Yes. And that was Commander Time. Next time, won't you join us for Commander Time? Commander Time, where commanders are timed.
I want Patrick to do a Mr. Rogers segment at some point. You can come in, you can change your sweater, you can put on your shoes.
Put on my loafers.
Yeah, your loafers. You can talk to King Friday.
Talk to Trolley.
Yep, Trolley.
Is there a Trolley magic card? There's Skeletal Ship.
No, but there's a toy boat.
Ooh, toy boat. Toy boat. It even has the dreaded cumulative upkeep.
Yes, the dreaded cumulative upkeep.
Did I say it right? I still can't tell the difference.
Nope.
Okay. I legitimately cannot hear. I do not hear the difference. That's it. We're done. Toy boat.
All right. Pushing stop.
Stop. Visit us at patreon.com/commandertime.
You can find me on Twitter at Grubfellow.
At Detective Yarmits.
At Mr. Plorg.